around the world. If you have not yet registered for this event, go ahead and do it now. Don't miss out. Now, with an aim to provide the right career guidance to all working professionals, we have launched a series of sessions to help you achieve your career goals. And for this session, I would like to introduce our speaker for today, Mr. Bhavesh Bipin, who will be talking to us about preparing for an interview, what employers look for. Now, Mr. Bhavesh is currently working as Senior Manager, Purchasing Division as Commercial Head in Honda Malaysia. He graduated from University Malaya, or UM, in Business Administration and having an advanced diploma in Computer Engineering. Mr. Bhavesh has been with Honda Malaysia for the last 21 years. He is also a highly qualified as an internal auditor and has completed the Professional Coaching Masteries from International Association of Coaches. Highly qualified as internal Honda counselor with Neo-Cognitive Behavior Therapy Certified Practitioner and Neo-Neuro-Linguistic Programming Certification. Currently, Mr. Bhavesh sits in the panel of interviewing associates for Commercial Division in Purchasing Department. He has experience of interviewing candidates for nearly 15 years, from fresh graduates to candidates who are looking for career improvement. He believes any passionate person can succeed, provided that the right coaching and access to opportunities is given. Mr. Bhavesh has developed a set strategic method which can be used by candidates to achieve a higher rate of success in interview sessions. Mr. Bhavesh is a complete Honda person with high managerial skills. We are so glad to have you with us, Mr. Bhavesh, and we are looking forward to some great interview guidance from you. Over to you, Mr. Bhavesh.
Thank you very much, Stella, for the wonderful introduction. And thank you very much to Monsters for giving me this opportunity to present and share what employers look for when they come for interviews. So I would like to share a little bit of my presentation first. Hi, again. I always believe that the most important part of a person is his heart. Always listen to your heart, and it makes your life beautiful, no matter where you are, no matter what you are, no matter what you do. But by listening to your heart, you will make things wonderful. Trust me. Thank you for coming and joining this webinar. Today's presentation, today's webinar topic, I will be speaking preparing for interview, what employers look for. My name is Bhavesh Bipin. I'll speak a little bit into four. I've divided into 4 areas. I'll speak a bit about myself, introduce, so to understand that how much I've gone through with interviewing sessions. Next, I'll give a general concept about an interview. And I've developed a framework, especially for the new fresh graduates who are looking into work, who wants to venture into working life, and to those who have, who wants to improve their career path, who feels that they want to have another step ahead. And I hope that this framework will be able to assist you to your careers. And finally, if I can give you some example question tips on the methods of how you can answer, which I hope will be helpful to you. And I hope that you can prepare for this. A little bit about myself, of course, as Stella has already mentioned, that I worked in Honda Malaysia Sdn Bhd for the last 21 years. I've been trained and worked in that 21 years. I've worked in Thailand for about 2 years. And of course, I've got short job assignments in Japan, in India, and Indonesia. and of course in Taiwan sometimes. Out of that, I am currently heading the commercial division, and where I've interviewed many people into the job vacancies available in Honda. While that, I have also been a qualified professional coach and also a professional internal auditor. Putting that aside, experience on interviewing, for the last 15 years I've been interviewing, and currently I sit in the panel of interviewing for the commercial division of purchasing. And I strongly believe, as I mentioned, listen to your heart, life is beautiful, that if you are given the opportunity and if you are passionate enough, you will definitely find your job. A very gist about FAST. I studied business admin at the University of Malaya. I continued my advanced diploma in computer engineering in India, worked in the banking industry for the last 5 years, in the automotive industry for the last 20 years. I've been assigned working in Thailand for the last 2 years, and currently I've completed my coaching professionalism, NLP professionalism, and pursuing my new CBT professionalism. I've been doing, and I've been in the interview panelist for the last 15 years, and I've come across from many people, right from fresh graduates, as I mentioned, into people who have just worked for about 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and some of them up to 15 years, who are looking into higher position, but they still are unable to see and unable to be successful in getting interviews, second interviews, or getting the jobs. Well, I'm trying to recommend some ideas and proposals, but of course, some disclaimer, I would like to say that, of course, these are recommendations, and effort and determination is really needed. Overall ideas still lies on the experience and the study that may come through, and it may vary into industries to industries. And recommendations and proposals are good as at this time, and it's best you understand before you practice. Now, to the main thing. Preparing for interview. What employers look for. Many at times I hear people say, I've studied about the company. I have the score sheets. I spoke pleasantly. I did my best. I answered everything. I was very confident with my replies. In fact, I gave new ideas, new fact-basis ideas. I just don't understand why I keep failing my interviews. All the qualifications I have, all the skills I have, I'm prepared to work any conditions, regardless shift work, regardless they ask me to travel, whether office work, whether it is based on production work, but I never ever get my second call, or I never ever get my letter of appointment. It's always like, why, and why? So let me try to enlighten you this. Let me try my best to show you what employers are actually looking for and how you can adjust, how you can accommodate yourself into ensuring the higher probability, the higher success rate of you getting a particular job. Now, every one of us should understand there are actually two parties involved. There are two parties involved. One is the employers, and another one is the potential candidate, which is you. Now, this circle and this circle will have a connection. That is where the important part happens. We fail to identify what employers are looking for. The only gap that you have is between this small overlapping area for you to understand what employers are looking for. They have one big chunk behind, but you only have this big chunk only to understand them. So it is very important for us to understand what they are looking for, what they need. Because you can find a lot of things in Google, I would say, that what you should do, what you should prepare, what you should do, you should call up calls, what you should be preparing, reading, studying about the company, practice this, wear smart clothes, wear good environment, situations, I mean, come early and all that. But there is very few information available online, very few actual information available that tells us what actually is the requirement, or what is the other part of the coin which is looking for. What are they looking? So I will speak today on what is in their minds and what are they looking for. Now, a little bit of facts and figures. For about 100 people which I have interviewed, which has been interviewed in the month of August and July and August, verbal information from the panelists and some observation, 40% of people fail their interviews is due to their core values. Their core values, they are unable to portray or unable to explain what are their core values. It also is contributed to by communication, skills, difference from resume. You try to say something else in resume, and when you speak during the interview, you speak totally different, So that brings down, and 17% sometimes we do not know whether we are applying the correct job or not. We are just underqualified or sometimes overqualified. But the main core reasons are the core values. Now, what improvements are needed? What we find that people, the graduates or fresh members who are coming for interview, they need to build up their core values competencies, their communications, skills, their English, and also their confidence. But the higher end is confidence level to speak, to show that you know what you are speaking, and also your core basic values. Many at times, you come across some questions which you find is very simple, but actually the interviewers are actually looking at your core values. I'll run through some of the examples of what questions that we look for and how do we judge your core values. Now, in the job selection process, there is not one party. There are two parties available. One is the employer and another is the employee who's looking for a job. Now, there is two parties which are actually desperately looking for people. You or job seekers are looking for a job, while employers are also desperately looking for good people to employ. They are also sometimes, most of the times, short of good employees, caliber employees, passionate employees, and skillful employees. So they are also desperate, you are also desperate. So how to ensure that both parties will be successful? Now, both parties will do what? Will send an advertisement telling that they are interested in looking for someone, while job seekers will be interested in sending resumes. So both parties' common point, they built up the initial first communication between an employer and employee is the resume. Then what happens? The employers skim through your resume. They run through a fast fact-finding information about what you are, what skills you have, whether it fits 75% of the skills which is needed. And then they call you for the interview, as well as they select the panelists who will interview you. Well, when you get the call for an interview, what do? You read about the company and you prepare. Well, the next step is both of us, the employers and the employee, will go for an interview process where most important part of the activity, because with that interview success or failure, either you will get the vacancy, which is congratulations, or please try again, don't give up. So what I'm trying to say is that the most important part of the two connections of the two circles, which was overlapping, is the interview process. And as the time goes, the process of interview becomes very important, very vital for you to show and to ensure that you are able to secure a vacancy. Now, of course, there is before, there is during, and there is after. I will not go through in detail before, because I think so you can Google up a lot in the internet. You can find it in the internet, a lot of information. What you need to do in very basic ways, you need to examine the job description. You need to understand why you are being called for interview. Sometimes many members, they do not know why they are being called for the interview, because they find that they are actually looking for another job, but they apply for another job. But as long as they call for interview, during the interview, they will say they do not want that job and they want another job. Yeah, I've come across of that. Do a little bit of research about the company, but don't overdo it, because sometimes I come across that many people, they overdo it, the research, that it becomes a storybook or a textbook. For example, in my case, there are members who come for interview. They can tell me the history of Honda India, Honda Indonesia, Honda Thailand, Honda Malaysia. Well, some of the history even I do not know. That means they are overdoing it. Consider your answers with common interview questions. Of course, certain common interview questions you must know by heart. You must be able to present it correctly. At the end of this session, I will show you some of the common questions, and I will propose a common thoughts method, how to speak. Practice your speaking voice and your body language. You should know when to speak slow, when to emphasize, when to highlight, and your body language. Please do not come with sleepy head. Please do not come tired. Please come and look fresh. And prepare several thoughtful questions for the interviewer. This is very important also, because I feel that whatever you ask, it resembles what is in your mind and what is in your heart. So if your questions are not correctly addressed, the overall impression that you're giving is the core value of what kind of person you are. And sometimes if you can, if you're at a beginning stage as a fresh graduate, or you're beginning, or you have not gone for interviews for a very, very long time, please do some mock interviews with families and friends. Try to find somebody who's a little bit of distance from family, so they can tell you and they can give you the correct good opinion. Well, some tips during the interview, I would say you should look smart, smile, ensure your English is practiced. Some words, pronunciations are very important. Do not have your R's and U's. Most important, remember names. Remember the panelists' names. Make sure, if it is a virtual interview, like today, virtual webinar or something like that, make sure your computer, your camera is clear. Number 7 is the latest thing. Internet. Please ensure The internet connection is always there, always have a backup, always have the second computer ready in case, and do a little bit of your homework again. Now, this is before, right? So I will not go much more detail on before because I find that this one, you should be able to do it. Now, during the interviews, this is what is very important. This is the beginning of the journey of my today's webinar. There are always three areas which you can see. One is external, one is internal, and one is the intrinsic or the real value of that interview. We every time see the external, we every time notice the internal, but we always overlook the real value. The external is like, for example, what you wear good clothes, you come with ties, some even come with t-shirts. Please don't do that. You answer all the questions correctly. You answer properly with high grammar, correct grammar. Well, internal is what you understand, whether you are able to answer the question and your confidence in answering. So this is where you feel that, oh, all right, I'm getting the job. I feel that, oh, okay, things are correct. People are, he's understanding. The panelists smile at me. They are giving me more questions about one thing. So yeah, okay, I think I should be doing it. I should be able to get it. But what you missed is this, checking on character, on your value, and knowledge and skills. These are not direct questions. These are indirect questions, indirect checking, indirect conclusion. Now, how do we do this? How do we overcome this? How do we ensure that, you know, the characters, the values that we have, the knowledge that we have gained, and the skills? Can you imagine that if you are in Malaysia, of 12 years of schooling, you know, from your primary 12 years, the primary 6 years, secondary for about 5 years, or if those who have taken Form 6, 12 years, 4 years of university, which is for about 15 to 16 years of effort, 15 of 16 years of knowledge value is going to be judged at maximum 60 minutes or minimum between 35 to 60 minutes. How do you do that? It's a very, very, very highly skillful activity, I would say. That all the knowledge that you have, all the skills that you have learned up, all the values that you have built from your family, from your school, from your university, and the character that you have brought up, the character that you bring yourself today, you need to show all this within 35 minutes to 60 minutes. And not only you speak, but the panelist speaks also. So put at 50% of that time, between 35 minutes to 40 minutes, and you have like 20 actual core net minutes to speak about yourself. Wow. If you look into it, it's really high skillful activity. So what I've done today, of course, I've tried my best, very best, to tell everyone here who is attending, how do you want to see the employees look for? What are the values they look for? What are the characters? So I've developed a small little bit of framework for this webinar. And this framework, you can use it. Of course, I've tried so many methods. After in the Google, we have so many methods. We have like star methods, rising methods, but all these are very common. But what I'm doing, what I've done is I've created a simple method, and just for the fun of it, I have developed it based on my name. Yeah, my name. My name. Yes, of course, my name. Anyway, this doesn't mean that you have to follow, but please understand the core values which I'm going to speak based on this, and then you can develop yourself. It's just an acronym. Anyway, the BHAVESH stands for something. Bhavesh, of course, my name, but it stands for something more when you attend for an interview. So let us look into it, and then of course you can adjust it up to your suitability. Now, what B stands for? The B stands for bonding. What employers look for is, well, are you able to work with the team they have? You can be a highly qualified person, but are you able to work with a team? For example, if there are 3 average people, if we add up extremely high skillful person, he will not be able to work with the 3 average person, because the 3 average person will be left out, or they will not be able to work as a team. So it's very important that we look for that if this particular person, will he be able to work with the team behind them who are working behind us now currently. For example, if the team requires 5 people, 4 people have been employed, and there is a vacancy of 1 more person. So that person, 1 person, is it able to work with that team of 4, which is in the team? Are you the part of the puzzle? I'll explain more detail. H, honesty. A very important character, very important skill, a very important value, I would say. Are you honest in answering? The resume versus the explanation that you have. Next is affection. Are you passionate enough to work with this company? Are you passionate enough to work in this industry? And what do you know actually about the company, the work, and the industry that you are planning to come into? Some people, they have experience, they have done business administration degree, but then they want to work into oil and gas. Well, I'm not telling it's a no, but you need to know a lot of things about oil and gas industry. Oil and gas industry just doesn't work by pumping oil out from the earth and providing us. They have range of supply chains. They have range of activities. And if you're not passionate about oil and gas, and if you enter oil and gas and you just want a job, you're not passionate enough, I would say. Values. What values you stand for? Whether you are a person who is flexible, whether you're a stern person who cannot move, who believe that you yourself are correct only, or a person who can compromise values, that you can adjust yourself. That's very important. E for expectation. Many of you will say experience, but I would say expectation. What it's in for you when you want to come into this company? There is, of course, demand and supply. We need to know what are you looking for. We need to know what you want to do. Whether you're going to come in into short term, whether you're going to come in into long term kind of employment. Sharpness. It's very important in this era, after COVID era, that we need to be very, very sharp. Job industry has become so niche that you need to be very aware of your surrounding. You need to remember names. Are you remembering everybody's names? How well you did in your exams, or what you can or cannot remember. They may ask you some repeat questions. But repeat questions means they are just checking on you whether you can remember the first answers that you gave or not. And H, history. This is your experience, or your history, your family background, your hardships. So I've felt that These are the 7 things that an employer looks for, or we can group it into these 7 things into what an employer looks for. Now let us go a little bit more detail, but I think I will go a little bit fast. Number 1, bonding. Why is bonding important? Because you spend nearly 12 hours of your daylight life in the company. You don't want to be in the wrong team. You'll be spending more time in the company compared to your family once you start working from Monday to Friday, and some even Saturdays. And with this COVID thing, I think so, we are working nearly for like 24 hours. So bonding is very, very important. Now, what do they look for? They look for he or she fit, does he or she fit for the job requirement? Are you a team player with the current team? High skills, as his skills, your skills, and the skills which is needed in carrying out that particular work. Whether you can take the pressure with the team that you're working with, or will you be able to communicate well with your company or the team that you're going to work with? So what you can do is, for the first area on whether you can fit the job, what you should do is you should call ahead. What I would propose is that you call ahead the members, find out what is their daily work life, what is their routine, what is their culture. By being team player, perhaps during the communication 2 ways of the interview, you can ask like questions on 5W, 1H. What is the mixture? What is the maturity? What kind of working team, working time that you have? On the skills, what skills is needed? What you should know is you must know your skills. You must know what are your outstanding skills. Minimum outstanding skills you should portray is minimum with 3. Of course, the more is better, but minimum 3 skills will be looked for. And pressure, whether you can work in the company, in the company's pressure, is to provide some examples of a previous work, previous team activities in your school, whether how much pressure have you taken up, how much pressure you can work with. And of course, communicate well. You must know when to be lighter, when to be serious for the interview, when to give indications what type of skills, what type of communication skills, what type of activities that you have. Yeah? Honesty, we don't expect that you will be loyal if you are not honest. You have to be honest, speak the truth. Employers need, what we look for, what we look for is that, are you telling the truth? Can you be trusted with the company data, company activities? Because when you work, you will be having the access of companies' data, information. How well can we trust you? How much can we trust you? What is your dedication level? And what are you trying to avoid some hidden truth when you are speaking? When you answer a question, when you portray some situations. So are there something which mismatch on the story that you speak? So I would propose that you should tell the truth. If you cannot answer that question, tell that you do not know. Nobody is perfect. If you do not know, do not try to, like in Malaysia, they call it goreng. Please do not do that, because the employers will know. Don't give different answers. If 2 questions are similar type of questions, don't give different answers. We'll catch you. Show commitments, past experience, which teams have you been trusted with. Perhaps you have been a treasurer. Being a treasurer means you have been trusted with money, with the society's money, with the society's activity. Show that, tell that I can be a trusted person. The team has trusted me of being the treasurer of this society. And I have been handling amount of 10,000 ringgit, 15,000 ringgit. And you have done a project explain till end, not only water surface level. Sometimes we get, oh yes, I was involved in this event. I was the communication committee. Yeah, okay. So communication committee is what? Explain in detail. Well, I had the opportunity to monitor the hardware. I had the opportunity to ensure the event was successful in the projection area, the communication area where everybody could communicate, the community could communicate, committee could communicate with each other. It was my role to ensure that free flow of communication was available during the event. Be more a little bit detailed. And if you have identified your weaknesses, don't play around. Tell the interviewers, yes, this question is my weakness, and I am unable, and I'm trying to learn up, and this is what I want to do. By portraying this, actually the employers are looking whether you're telling the truth or not. Affection. Affection is skills can be obtained, but passion is priceless. You must love your job. You must love what you do. You must. If not, you will be dreadful. Early in the morning to wake up, to go to work, and you'll be just by 10 o'clock in the morning. I've seen some people who have just started working. At 10 o'clock in the morning, they're looking at what time this work will finish. They're not passionate enough then. What you should look is what employers look for. They look for passion. You must have passion to work for that industry. You must love it. It could be your hobby, your interest. Tell what you do during free time relating to your passion and to the industry. For example, I come from automotive industry. I love cars. I love racing. I love anything got to do with the automotive industry. During free time, I enjoy watching Formula One. That shows that you have that connection, building that connection towards that industry. And what do you know about that particular company? What do you know about their competitors? So when you know about their competitors, how they work differently, why you love this particular company, so it shows that you really, really want to be. For example, if you're in company A, but when you go for an interview in company A, you can tell, oh, company A is like this, company B is like this, company C is like this. And you have done a comparison study. You know what is the SWOT analysis of this particular company. Well, there's nothing there to stop you then. What we want to know is, with this passion, is whether you will be here temporarily, whether you are here to learn up skill, whether you want to jump to another company, or you want to grow with this company. There are some hidden questions which I can't tell you, but there are hidden questions which we will be able to test you, whether it indicates that your intention is to grow and stay for longer years with the company, or you are just here to learn the skills and also move on. We'll be able to identify it. V, which stands for values. Whether you're flexible, stern, or you can be compromised. How you spend your time, your childhood time. Of course, when they ask you, what's your family background? From there, they will know. Yeah? Your performance in school, were you a prefect, were you a head of a society, clubs, or anything. If you have led in your school, it's better for you to share what indicates. Just don't say that you were a prefect. For example, just don't say that you were a prefect. Say what skills you gained from being prefect. What values that you had becoming a prefect. By being a prefect, I'm able to cultivate discipline skills. I have managed to be a very disciplined person. So that shows that you have gained years of experience of that skill, of that particular thing. Relating to core values. So what we do is we will check whether this particular person or she or he is able to blend with the core values of a company. There are certain core values different. Every company's core values are different. Every company's core values are different. And whether you are able to assimilate yourself together with that particular core value company, with the company's core value. So that is very important for us, because we do not want a person who cannot work in the same team has different values. For example, if you are into a purchasing, you have to be you need to have very stern, honest values, because when you are purchasing, you're purchasing something. You cannot have a compromised value where cost of a product or parts that you are purchasing is different from what is the actual part cost. Whether you're flexible or not, whether you can compromise yourself with the company data or information, this will be checked upon you. Questions are asked based not on direct questions. These are more towards indirect questions, whether to show whether you are a trustable person, whether you stand with your values no matter what is the situation, where you are or whatever you were doing. Some examples, perhaps you can say that when you were a treasurer or when you were into an event, there was a situation where you had to make some decisions. When you had to make some decisions, what decisions you made were based on what values that you believe on. Then when it was wrong for you to tell them, in that event. So if you can say that, that means you are portraying your initial core values that you have. Expectation. Are you clear with what you want? The standard, always normal questions that will come out is, what is your 5-year plan? What do you want to be in the next 5 years? The main purpose why we asked you that is we want to see whether you have any vision, whether you have any mission, whether you know and you are a person who is specific enough to show your commitment. Well, if you just say that in 5 years' time, I want to be a manager, I would say. I would be like, again. And I would say like, what manager skills that you want? You should say that you should be able, I want to lead a team in a situation where I can have managerial skills. Of course, you don't mention that in 5 years' time, you want to become a CEO or senior manager when you're coming for an executive interview. You have to play a little bit of smartness and logicness down there. Yeah? What are your advantageous skills? What are you expecting from your advantage skills? Some of them can have additional language. You have learned additional language during your university or something like that. Yeah, you know how to speak French, you know how to speak Japanese. So are you going to demand for something? Are you going to add value to the company? How you plan to use it in the working environment? For example, those who are coming for working in Honda, having Japanese language would be an added advantage. But how are you going to use it? What skills are you going to tell us that you want to use this Japanese language advantage for me and for the company? And the last area is also very, very important. We will check on your giving up easily or not. Whether you are a person who gives up easily or whether you are a person who has very strong determination. Do you give up easily? Share. Of course, if you don't share, we will ask you some indirect questions, whether how well you give up. For example, what were your difficult times when you were in university? It's a very standard question. Actually, what we want to see is whether you give up very easily. How strong is your determination? Okay? So share some incidents where you did not give up. Share some incidents where you tried and you failed, and 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 you tried. Small, regardless whether it is small, long, big, it's okay. But share this information. S, sharpness. What is sharpness? This is a very impromptu question. These questions are being asked very, very impromptu, very, very fast, and whether to see whether you are sharp, alert, and your mind has not gone away. Yeah? We do test you sometimes whether you have short memory term, long memory term. Example, we'll ask you, if we asked you, for example, how did you come to work? And you say that you come by car. And we ask you, do you own a car? You say, yes, I own a car. Then we'll ask you, do you know what's RON 95 per liter price? So if you're unable to tell that RON 95 per liter price, then you are not alert when you pump petrol. You do not watch what is the cost per liter. Or what we'll ask you is, how much do you pour petrol today? And you say like I poured 50 ringgit, and we'll ask you like 50 ringgit is like what? How many? 10 liters of petrol? And like you will be like, yeah, 10 liters. You are not aware of your surrounding. And you need to be very, very smart, I would say. I would not say smart. I would say like you need to be very, very, there's the word, sharp. You need to see how you have come into the interview from the gate to the receptionist to the interview room, how they call you, what is the method of registration, how many panelists are there, which panelist is asking questions, which panelist is not asking questions. So from that situation, you know that how strong is the interview going on. Please remember the interviewers' names. No matter how difficult it is, please remember. I will not elaborate more than that. Exam results. Yes. Of course, I do understand that not everyone is gifted, not everyone straight performers, but everyone has exam results. I believe that everyone has exam results. No matter what is your exam results, but if you are able to tell that you have tried very best and you have learned that something, you could be like you have just received B, but you have excelled, that you can tell that, I have studied history, I have put in a lot of efforts, and I know that I've managed to get only B, but history has taught me to understand what is my background, why Malaysia currently needs a lot of local companies, why Malaysia has economies. So you're able to relate, and you're able to be very, very fast in answering questions like, for example, do you know what's going on with the current economic situation? And you will be able to answer, pop, pop, pop. That means you're sharp enough. I would advise you that if you are called for an interview, please read newspapers for the last 1 week. Some tips. You need to read newspapers for 1 week before to know what's going on. History. Well, this is because it happens to be my name, H last, but also it's also equally important. We want to know from what history that you came out with, because this is the base of your core values. How you introduce yourself. That indicates that your parents' influence towards you, your teachers, your local community, where you grew up with, the way that you introduce yourself. It's very important also. It's very important also because that is who you are. Everyone likes to tell and has the respect of everybody, including the interviewers, of what you are, but how you say about what you are is reasonably important. And the hardships that you've gone through, the expectations. This also relates to the previous earlier areas. So in conclusion, you should have a method to identify what are the interviewers looking for. If you don't have one, I'll borrow you mine, Bhavesh. I believe that by understanding these areas, by strategizing yourself based on this bonding, honesty, affection, values, expectation, and sharpness of history, you are definitely going to increase the chances of being successful. Many of my students who I coach, many of the students who who are under me, when they use this method, 75% to 90% have managed to obtain a job, I would say. Some additional tips I would like to share, some additional tips which I think that everyone should know. These are basic questions, but how you answer plays a very important role. For example, please introduce yourself. It should be based on proper thoughts. Please don't just say your name. Please just don't say your name. Please just don't say your name. Please say in a proper way about yourself, then about your family, about the education, and what's your vision and mission. Tell us about what you are. For example, what are your 5 years plans? You can start off with, 5 years plan means today is 2021, 5 years plan will be in 2026. Of course, please don't say that from executive you want to be a CEO. Of course, I'm not telling it's not possible. There is all the possibilities there, but more likely like this, let's be a little bit reasonable. What skills you have used? Being engineering, being an engineer, I would like to be this, and what position you want to be. Probably I would say 2-step position would be just nice. From of course executive, then you have senior executive, assistant managers, deputy managers, senior managers, general managers, and all that. But of course, like 2 steps in 5 years time is achievable. Can you explain what you did in your previous workplace? Well, start off with what is the company about. Never say bad about any companies. Never speak bad about your previous employers. Never, ever, never, ever. Explain what your department function was or is, if you're working still. Explain what is your job function, what you work, whether you work as a team, alone, and what skills have you gained. Some questions: why do you want to leave your current role? Why do you want to come out? Why? You're happy there. Why do you want to come out from that company? Well, start about the company, start about the task, how long you have been doing the same task, and the skills that you have gained, and the peak that you have achieved in that skill, and explain what is the issue that is bothering you, and what you learned, and what you will not repeat these mistakes, and this is where you want to do a career. All right? So very, very organized thoughts, very, very positive thoughts being portrayed. That is what employers look for. Well, just nice. The overall summary: if you have no concept, you can take my concept free of charge. Bhavesh, apply, job with your skills and capabilities, learn about the company, learn about what your skills are, practice mock interviews again with your friends and families, be prepared, and practice speaking fluently. So much for giving me and listening your ears. Good luck. Now, again, my name is Bhavesh, and you can communicate with me with my email here, bhavesh@honda.net.my. You can find me, although I'm a little bit less trained in, well, you can write that Bhavesh Bipin Chandra. With that, I would like to say thank you so much. End my presentation. If there are any questions and answers, I'm more than willing to answer.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bhavesh, for the wonderful sharing. The acronyms, Bhavesh, and the tips there are really, really useful. I personally think that there are a couple of tips that I can use for myself. Okay, so we have a couple of questions. Okay, let us take the Q&A. Okay, first question: how to negotiate salary being a young professional? Very interesting topic.
Very interesting. Salary. It depends on. Okay, let us put it let me tell you to this. There are two kinds of companies, right? One is a structural based company, and one is open companies, which are small companies, which are startup companies. Structural based companies, they have a standard working salary structure scale. All right. So you can't run away much. If 1 year fresh graduate, they will start off with 1,000 ringgit. And then if you have 1 year experience, you'll be 1,002. And you have 2 years experience with 1,004. It's either you fall into 1 year experience or you fall into 2 years experience. So they will not be able to adjust you much on that salary scale, because they are already very structured, and they want to ensure that all employees are within the same range. So I'm very sorry for that, but that's where you fall in. For small companies, you need to understand what is the company background, how big is the company, and how much is your contribution towards your salary. Usually, if you are asking way above the industry, standard industry, meaning it also comes back to the same thing, which is part of the Bhavesh, where core values, whether you're putting money before the job or passion, that you want first before giving. Like I've heard many times they say what you can give to the country instead of what the country can give to you. So I will not say that you cannot negotiate, because I'm trying to say that you can negotiate. But when you negotiate, please negotiate with a little bit of understanding from the employer's point. Many at times, I have come across that the interviewers, the candidates, actually very highly actually qualified, but because they ask a very high salary range and they cannot fit into our structural salary, they're not being called. Next question.
Okay,
I hope I'm
thank you,
answering.
Bhavesh. Okay, next one. How to prepare for an interview if I'm looking for a domain switch?
Wow.
That's a big one.
That's a big one. That's another Bhavesh Bipin Chandra there. I have to add in the Bipin Chandra now. Actually, you need to know why are you changing the domain switch. Because preparing for interviews are actually same. I've been interviewing. I've interviewed in the bank industry, automotive industry, oil and gas industries. Basic questions is who you are, okay, and why you want to change. So if you want to prepare for an interview, you really need to understand why you want to change. Because if you have been like 20 years in one industry, one domain, and you want to change, there's something wrong there. There is definitely something wrong somewhere. So I'm unable to answer you 100% today, but I can tell you that I will give you some tips that you really need to understand why you want to change. And when you get that answer, I don't think so you will have difficulty in preparing for the interview. Sorry.
So our attendee also added, I switched streams multiple times in my career. Do you see this as being inconsistent or value the versatility I bring on the table? Will this affect my overall success?
Professionally, probably, I would say, probably, because it shows that you are unable to understand what you want actually. It still comes back. You see, that is why I say the basic of the interview, just if the beginning of my slides, I say the core values, 40% they fail because of the core values. Because if you keep on changing in your streams, you still have not found the correct thing for you with your passion. You need to, what I can advise you is, there are some tests, I think so, I'm not sure whether Monster provides that test also, where to see what is your passion, what you like, what career that you can look for, which industry you are more catered to. I would advise you to take some paid tests, not the free ones. Paid ones are more professionally done. You should take that test and to see where and what lies in your skills.
Thank you. I think probably I would also elaborate a bit on that. You see, for every different career juncture we are, we probably have different likings, different interests in. So I guess changing domain probably at a younger stage of our career would be okay, as we, sort of like kids, we want to dabble into different things, want to find out what is really our passion, our interest. So I think personally for me, I feel it's okay. But as you sort of climb into your mid-career, going into your peak kind of thing, it's probably good to stick in one domain where you see yourself as a professional in that domain. So that's where your value comes in. What do you think about what I said, Mr. Bhavesh?
Very, very, very true. As just now I mentioned to you that the experience, that if you have 20 years experience, 20 years is already middle. No? But in the beginning, it's okay. If you are just fresh grad or you have very long life, don't worry, enjoy. Life is beautiful. Follow your heart. I would say keep on. You can for the first. I would, if I can say, the first 3 to 5 years, it's okay. I think so. You can keep on changing that because you are still finding your passion. But after 20 years, then you really need to sit down and take some good tests, I would say.
Yeah. Fair enough, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, next question for you, Mr. Bhavesh. How do we articulate core values?
Wow. How do you articulate? So definition of core value plays an important role here. So what is the point of core values that you look, and what is the core values that I look? At that juncture, it becomes the connections. So as at this point, I would say that try to, if it is for an interview, try to articulate your core values with the company's core values. Because, like for example, because I come from Honda, we have a very Japanese-based culture where respect is very highly. I mean, like in Western companies, like American-based companies, it's okay to speak up. You can just speak up your opinion. But in Japanese-based companies, you have to show respect. You don't speak up until the higher authorities have already spoken, and usually when the CEO or the general manager has already spoken, your opinions should be told before he speaks. When general manager or they have already done decisions and all that, then you come in with your opinion. That means it's a different core value already. That means you can't meet with that company's core value, because you'll be like, hey, what are you trying to do? We have already decided things, So
I guess the key is also to do back to doing homework, right? Doing research on the company. Most of the times, companies actually put up their introduction about the company, their values, and all those all on the website. So all this information can be easily retrieved on the website. So it's important as a job seeker for us to really do some studies, background check on whether the core values, the beliefs of the company actually matches with the core values that we have as a person, right?
Very true, very true. One additional tip which I can give is usually when you receive a call for an interview, you must know who is calling you. You must know who is probably she is just a clerk, because she will be given a list. Tolong panggil, you just call for this person for the interview at this point of time. But she's just a clerk, but she's part of the team, So if you know her name, and if you know and you can speak to her just right before the interview, hey, I just want to know how is the working life there and all that. She'll be able to give you a lot of tips, trust me. Some secrets.
That's a very good tip. Coming from a sales background, as a salesperson, our first point of contact, normally when we call into a client's office, it's always the receptionist. If you can, come ching a bit with the receptionist, you actually get a lot of information. Yes. I guess this comes back to bonding. So even with every stakeholder in the company, every person in the company, there's always some bonding that we can do.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, very next question. How do you address what are your weaknesses when asked in an interview? How should we address that question?
I've come across many people. They're just perfect. They're just perfect. They just don't have any weaknesses. That's amazing, because even I myself have weaknesses. let me speak a little bit of one experience which I had. There was this guy who was coming for an interview, and the position was a senior position, and he seems his resume that he seems to be doing everything, right from the CEO's responsibility to probably the security guard's responsibility. Monitors, he oversees everything here and then everything. The only difference was between him and probably the company owner was the ownership of the company, which happens to be true. Which happens to be true because he was coming from a small company, and small companies, their responsibilities are very wide range responsibilities. So it was fine. But then when we asked, yeah, I believe that, what is your weaknesses? And he says, no, there's no weaknesses. But our questions caught him by asking him, well, if there is no weaknesses and you like your job, why are you coming for an interview for a different position? Oh, because the company is not doing very well. The company is into lower business and all that. So you were doing some marketing, and what happened? Oh, people don't want to work together. So we found out that then of course from there, people don't want to work together. My boys keep on resigning and they don't want to listen to me. So what does that mean? That he's having weak communication skills, because when people resign, you have 5% resignation. But if you have 70% people resigning, meaning there's something wrong with you, not with the people who are coming to work. So these weaknesses, how do you show? Is by telling them that this is where I failed. Start off with what you have failed. And like, for example, for example, a very simple example. I failed my mathematics. Okay? Example, I failed my mathematics and I didn't do well in my mathematics is because I have these weaknesses. I cannot calculate 1 plus 1. So you see, so you relate your failed activity towards your skills. But say I do not know how to calculate 1 plus 1, and I failed my mathematics is because I do not know how to calculate 1 plus 1. And to overcome this, I have learned arithmetics. I'm learning another method, engineering method probably. I know this example sounds very funny, but this is how you relate. You bring the experience of a skill of weaknesses, then you bring the weaknesses, then you say how you overcome it. So that is how you move on.
So basically, it's not, it's pretty impossible for someone to be perfect. Someone who does not have weaknesses, there's always some. But a good point, I think, from what you have shared, I believe, would be to put that weakness up front and also share what you have personally done to actually change a weakness into something positive. What you have done to try and move it from being a weakness to something positive for yourself, right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Very true.
So another question, do I really need all of Bhavesh?
If you want me, you can have me. No, of course, you don't have to have all the Bhavesh. You don't have to have all the Bhavesh. This Bhavesh is our only 7 core values which we look for, which some of us look for. You can shorten the Bhavesh to Bhav. You can expand it Bhavesh to Bhavesh Bipin Chandra or Bhavesh whatever, but you need to have something. What I'm trying to say is that you need to have something. You don't have to have all the Bhavesh.
Okay, so basically pick and choose whatever fits and suits you.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Okay, one of them commented, now that we know about the acronym Bhavesh, have you started working on Bipin? We are waiting for that.
Well, of course, I love doing this because it makes, you know why? Because let me be very frank. I have these weaknesses in memory. This is my weaknesses in memory because I cannot remember very well a lot of things. And I have to remember many people's names. There are about 200 people who are working with me, under me. So I have to remember everybody's names. So what I do is I do this, and I learned because of this rainbow colors. Kalau Mama jual kacang hijau untuk balik India, M is merah and J is ginger. So that works for me. That works for me. So this is how I overcome my weaknesses. So yeah, I do have Bipin and I do have Chandra. And actually I have many more actually.
That's good. We would love to hear that some other time. Yeah.
Sure.
The rainbow color. I remember in school we were taught Michael Jackson kena halau balik India Utara.
Yeah.
Acronyms really help.
Yeah.
So we'll look forward to other acronyms from you next time.
Sure. Definitely.
Okay. One question. In today's world, the job scope keeps changing in the industry. How do we keep abreast with what is needed by the industry?
That's why I told just now I mentioned you need to read. You need to read. That's why I mentioned during the presentation also that I mentioned that before the interview, at least read 1 week newspaper. So you know what's going on with the country, with their industry. And probably I would advise, it doesn't mean that once you're graduated, you don't have to read. Probably a month, 1 book in a month it's very good to do, and try to read something which you're passionate about and something which the industry is related to the industry about. There is the only thing I can help you. You don't read, you are not, because even the leaders read. Yeah, the leaders read. So if you don't read, I'm very sorry, you are just left behind, because technology is so fast. Things are moving so fast now.
In fact, I think the top leaders in the country, they spend a lot of time reading. So yes, candidates, please remember to do your homework, read up. Okay, all these are your tips. Keep it close to your chest. Okay, another question we have from Jehan. Is it wise to ask for a salary above the recommended range? Reason being is to leave some buffer for negotiation.
Another tip. Don't talk about salary in your first interview. Don't talk about salaries in your first interview. Probably that's a negative point. Second interview, judge for yourself. Where do you stand? If you see, that's why the Bhavesh becomes important. Surroundings. If the second interview, there are only 3 people. Okay, there are only 3 people, correct? And the vacancy is 2 people. 2 vacancies. There are 2 vacancies, 3 of you coming for interview. Do you think that you can negotiate for salary? Probably yes, right? Because your chances are there. Yeah, then you can speak. But if the vacancies are only 2 vacancies and there are 20 of you being interviewed for the second interview, and if you are going to speak about salary, you just do yourself the ranking. You look at Bhavesh S, the surroundings, and the sharpness. How sharp will you be? At what point, where will you be? So that plays an important role there. So of course you can ask for more, and they will definitely, if they really want you, the skills that they require, they need, then yeah. For example, I think so. Now, highly sought after people are based on, like in my industry, highly sought after people are based on Katya knowledge, Katya skills, whether they can do the drawings and all that. Yeah, they are special skills. But this kind of people are usually pinched, right? Pinched, right? I'm not sure whether they're usually pinched. They're being offered special jobs, special work. They're not usually common people. They're not usually common people. So please be alert, please be sharp on the environment of that situation. So and then another tip is that, see who is interviewing you. If the person who is interviewing you is at the higher end of the company, probably your skills are important to that person. If in that interview, the CEO exists or the chief operating officers exist, then probably you have better rooms of negotiation. But if the panelist is only probably the head of division, probably the head of department, that means it's a common kind of thing. So if they do not have that much authority to tell that salary is okay to up and down, they do not have much authority to tell you that, okay, we can accept your salary.
Again, I think it's back to doing all the homework still, because there are many websites. On Google, you can simply Google to look for reviews about the company, what sort of salary range that are being offered. So I think as a job seeker, that is a very good tip. Again, like what you said, sharpness. Find out about who your potential interviewer are. In fact, if the recruiters call you to offer an interview, it's always good to ask for tips like, any tips for me? How is this person? There's always LinkedIn that we can check on, who our interviewers are, what are their credentials, what they have done, what are kind of posts that they put. Those actually gives us tips on how to react during an interview. And then we can see how we want to probably potentially negotiate for a higher salary.
Definitely.
Okay. One more question for you, Mr. Bhavesh. What are interview tips for a senior manager? Now, this is a different seat right now. Right now will be the manager interviewing the candidate.
Probably he should share with me. He or she should share with me, probably.
Sharing session.
As you progress in your career, responsibility versus operational work. There's a difference between. Beginning part of your career is a lot of operational work compared to accountability or responsibility. When you go up as a senior manager, when you become a senior manager or probably general manager, accountability is higher role compared to operational activity, because operational activities, people who are reporting to you, they will be doing it. Probably you may have few managers reporting to you. So how you foresee accountability, how you take responsible, how diligent you are, how skillful you are to find something which is a weakness and how you overcome it plays an important role when you explain to in the interview. So because the explanation is no more job-based explanation, it's function-based explanation. You should explain based on function, that this function that you have improved, this function that you have worked into, this function's productivity has improved from 0% to 50%, 70%. And that accountability, if you manage to show that accountability, well, there's some tips down there, I would say.
Okay, thank you very much for the sharing, Ms. Bhavesh. We have exceeded our time, so I'm really thankful for you staying over, taking on the questions that we have. Yeah, okay, thank you so much, participants, for joining us. And again, Ms. Bhavesh, for your time, okay, sharing with us all the useful tips and the acronyms. Bhavesh, okay.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you. So with this, we come to the end of the session for day 3. Okay, so participants, you can still go on to our virtual career fair and access jobs by our top employers. If you are interested to find out more about the jobs that are available at Honda, please feel free to check out at the booth, Honda's booth, and speak to the recruiters. All right, so remember to register for the Malaysia Virtual Career Fair hosted by Monster Jobs. We have 2 more days to go, and we have a lot more professionals that are grabbing jobs at leading companies in Malaysia. So don't miss out your opportunity. All right. We also have an amazing lineup of sessions for the next 2 days. So do remember to join us and get inspired by the best-in-class industry experts. Remember to register and don't miss out on the sessions. All right. See you tomorrow, folks. Bye-bye.